So I'm Sonja Grein, I'm the Secretary General of the European Choral Association Europa Cantat, which is the sister association of ACDA. And we're going to share my PowerPoint presentation later, so I might not always talk about all the slides, but you can get them after this webinar. So the first slides we can run through quite quickly. We are an association, a network of organizations, choirs, and individuals. So we have a lot of national and regional organizations as members, and also some choirs and individual members. And we consider ourselves as a network. And through all our member organizations, as you can see on the next slide, we consider we are reaching around 2.5 million singers in Europe. And some years ago, we tried to find out how many singers there are in Europe, how many people are doing collective singing. And we came to the figure of about 37 million singers in continental Europe, which represents 4.5% of the population. And I think it's always important to remember this, because this is the amount of people only in Europe we're talking about who have a problem now because they can't do collective singing. So what can we do to sing together while social distancing? And in our network, we have asked our members for ideas. And I actually want to start with some non-digital ideas, and some of them have been mentioned before. We have heard quite a lot about Zoom meetings, and often the question comes, but what do you do if people don't have the technology? And actually, the interesting thing about Zoom is that you can call in with your telephone. So in my own choir, I have several older choir members who don't own even a smartphone, and they're using their telephone and calling into Zoom. You can't see them, but they can follow the rehearsal, and they can speak, and they can be muted by the conductor like all the others. So actually it's possible to do such rehearsals also with the telephone. And if you have a group of older singers where nobody has a smartphone and maybe you don't even want to rehearse, you can also use the good old telephone conferencing tools that we had when there were no things such as Zoom. And you can have a social telephone conference with everybody. Then they just need to call a number, put in a code, and you can all have a chat together. And I think these social issues are important for many people. Now, if you have very young children, you might have the same difficulty on the other end of the scale. And some of our children's choir conductors said they simply took their bike and cycled from one family to the next and sang individually with the children from outside the window. Or sent them some tasks in advance and asked them to hang them in the window and just had conversations with them, or brought them some Easter eggs. So they tried to keep a personal contact while social distancing. And also, I think what you can do with very young children is you can encourage the families to sing with their children, because young children never live alone. So you can send them some sing-along karaoke tapes to the parents and encourage them, or a little song booklet or a CD, and encourage them to sing in families, which is something that we all want to happen more. And then actually Philip already mentioned that he's thinking about doing a car rehearsal. And I can say that in Germany, we've had several choirs who already did that. And there's actually different versions. There's high technology versions where you have a microphone and headset for everybody in the car. But there's also a version with an FM transmitter that costs about 25 euros. And so there you see a picture of a small car rehearsal, but they have also been kind of bigger car sing-alongs in car cinemas, where we have 100 cars and they're all singing along. So that was for the non-digital solution. So you can see that even without technology, there are things that you can do. And then we have talked already quite a bit about the online rehearsals with Zoom and Jitsi and Skype and other programs that you can use. And as somebody said, of course, the main problem with these programs is that they have a latency issue. And also, as somebody pointed out in the comments under the YouTube film, is that they usually cancel out most of the people. So because they're not made for making music together, when we try to sing all together, actually you could only hear the 2 or 3 loudest ones. And that's one of the other reasons why you can't really sing together on these programs. But you can learn a lot. And there's actually one other system I learned well before COVID-19 times, and that's there's a choir in Lebanon that rehearses by WhatsApp. And the conductor just records something on WhatsApp, and they have to rehearse it, and then they have to record themselves and send it back. And they've been doing this for years and rehearsing together like that across different countries. We've also talked about virtual choirs, so I don't need to say much about them, but what we can say is a virtual choir is a choir for the audience, but it's not a choir for the singers. They may enjoy watching the result, but actually they're singing alone. So it's not really collective singing that we are looking at. Then you can also do some kind of digital open singing, so sing-along sessions. Our French Choral Association did that. They had many, many people following. They actually played a choir sound, which was a bit different from the Zoom recordings because you could actually hear a real choir and sing along with the choir sound. But of course, you're still not really singing together. Nevertheless, this can be a nice way of keeping in touch with a larger community as well. And on the next slide, you can see an example, because what they did is they used recordings from a real open singing and the same conductor that did the open singing at the last festival in an amphitheater. And they had a lot of fans who wanted to repeat these sessions. So it's been very successful. And then the last part, which I think we haven't talked about yet so much, is there was, of course, the question that came up, is there hope for simultaneous singing? And I think there's two questions. Is there hope for live simultaneous singing, and is there hope for digital simultaneous singing? And as we said, all the programs we have talked about until now don't allow proper simultaneous singing with a digital tool. There are some programs that do allow that. There are Jamulus, Jamkazam, Soundjack, and some other programs like this. However, they are not really ideal for our choral world, first of all, because most of them are restricted to quite small numbers of people. So maybe 3 or 4 musicians in different houses can play together, but you can't have a choir singing together. Then for many of them, you need really high IT skills. So it only works for choirs that have an IT technician on the choir. And also the latency problems are not completely gone. They do work on the local hardware latency problems, but not so much on the connection problems. Then there is a fantastic latency-free platform called Lola, where you can really make music between 2 places with a perfect connection, but you need a lot of money for it and very good hardware and a very good connection. So actually it's something that usually works between music universities across the world. And they are frustrated at the moment because they have this fantastic Lola connection, but they are not allowed to use the rooms in which they would have access to it. So they can't even use it in many countries at the moment. So this leads me to introduce the next speaker, because there is one project, we'll jump over the questions and the stay in touch. You can read that later. Maybe just that we have collected these ideas and many more in the document that you will find in the PowerPoint later. But while looking at things, we found out that there is a new project called Digital Stage, and that wants to make it possible for bigger groups to sing together online simultaneously. They're still in the testing and fundraising phase. They need a little bit of money to really get going. And if you have a little bit of money to spare and you want to support a project, they'll be happy about your support as well. And I will let André from Essen in Germany tell you a little bit more about the technical details of this program. André.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sonja. At first, we are a group of volunteers. We are meet together at a hackathon in Germany, and we are grouped up with artists and musicians, and we identified the very, very great problem of latency, and we want to solve it and give everybody the chance to make music together and rehearsal together, and that on an affordable cost. So at Next, we build a solution, or we want to build a solution, because we are just in the founding stage. So we are in the very first beginning in an alpha version, and we want to make a solution with audio and video conference services, and that is all only designed for music, dance, theater, and virtual arts. So we want to create one version for browser-based devices. So we want one for Linux, Windows, and OS X and smartphones, all productions. So at the second part, we want to build a desktop app. So that is a step forward with lower latency and with some hardware equipment like a USB sound card and a microphone. And the third version is a box solution. That is a small Raspberry Pi based computer. And this computer you can afford by us. And with this computer, you are able to connect this to your LAN and to your USB sound card, and you are just start singing over the internet. So at the next, we have the three solutions. We want low latency, low cost, and we want to everybody of you give us information which feature you want to have. So we want balanced level, we want echo cancellation, we want optimizing the music for music, we want optimizing for music, not for speech. And also we want to give everybody the chance to use this. So our latency based version is about 50 milliseconds. That's the second one with the small program you have to download. The browser version is about 100 milliseconds. There are 500 milliseconds. That's the max. So in the next slide, or on the next slide, yes, you see a little design study. That's our output that we want to show everybody you use our app. So you see the different singers. You can change the level of every singer. So you can hear different people better or less. So, and in the middle, you want to see the director. Also, we want to implement a metronome. So everybody have a click or a visual feature that shows a click. Yeah. And that are just some of our features. So for example, it will be able to make stages for every different voice type. So you have bass or you have sopran, and you can switch them, and you can change the level, and you can hear them. So in the next, I just complete all together. We are just in the founding phase. We want to give you this software that you can use it, and you can music together and rehearsal. And also in the next phase, we want to add very interesting features like virtual imaging and 3D sound and virtual reality features. But that is very feature sounds. So at first we are in the founding state, and I think that's really a good point. If you want to contact us and give us feedback, you can go on digitalstage.org or contact at digitalstage.org and just write us your feedback. And if you want to start with us, you can give a little fund to us. Thank you. Oh, how many singers can prepare? So we are just in testing phase. We are just now working with 5 or 10 people in one stage, but we want that that greater choirs are able to music together. So we small them down to some different stages for every singer type. So it's smaller for everyone.